bade farewell to his top commanders. Said Washington, quote, "With a heart full of love and gratitude, I now take leave of you. I most devoutly wish that your latter days may be as prosperous and happy as your former ones have been glorious and honorable." Incredibly, the Frances Tavern stands today in its original form. Every year, thousands of tourists flock to the bar, where the founding fathers enjoyed roast chicken, oysters, and copious amounts of brandy. Here's something else you might not know. The tavern played a role in exposing our nation's greatest traitor. In September of 1780, bartender Sam overheard a group of British soldiers toasting American General Benedict Arnold. Well, Sam passed the information to a farmer in New Jersey who relayed it to Washington himself. Secret plot to surrender West Point to the English army had been exposed. Benedict Arnold defected to the British 2 weeks later. Back in a moment. Are you feeling the impact of recent timeshare industry changes? Now more than ever, the costs of timeshare ownership far outweigh the benefits. My friends at Lone Star Transfer are the only company I trust to help you get out. Our listeners' positive feedback demonstrates why I've supported the company for years. For more than a decade, they have helped over 20,000 owners get out of the timeshare. Their exclusive options can help you get out faster and easier, more than any other option in the country. They are the only company that will give you a written guarantee and release you from your timeshare in a specific time frame. With an A+ rating at the Better Business Bureau and thousands of 5-star reviews, customer service is their top priority. For free consultation and a guaranteed solution, please call 855-551-7066. That's 855-551-7066, or go to LoneStarTransfer.com. Thank you for listening to the O'Reilly Update. I am Bill O'Reilly. No spin, just facts, and always looking out for you.
KLGY HD3 Clayton, K270BW Bellefontaine, KNBS Bowling Green. This is News Talk STL at 1019, 94.1, and always streaming at newstalkstl.com.
News this hour from Town Hall. I'm Keith Peters in Washington. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem says President Trump is considering invoking the rarely used Insurrection Act in response to violence in Minneapolis at protests against the federal immigration crackdown.
I discussed with the president this morning several things that we are dealing with under the department and different operations. We did discuss the Insurrection Act. He certainly has the constitutional authority to utilize that. My hope is that this leadership team in Minnesota will start to work with us to get criminals off the streets.
The announcement comes a day after a man was shot and wounded by an immigration officer who had been attacked with a shovel and broom handle. U.S. forces in the Caribbean Sea have seized another sanctioned oil tanker the Trump administration says has ties to Venezuela.
Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem says the Veronica previously passed through Venezuelan waters and was operating in defiance of President Donald Trump's established quarantine of sanctioned vessels in the Caribbean. It's the 6th sanctioned vessel seized by U.S. forces as part of that effort. The Veronica is currently listed as flying the flag of the South American country Guyana and is considered part of the shadow fleet that moves cargoes of oil in violation of U.S. sanctions. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
The Senate on Thursday cleared the final procedural hurdle for a 3-bill spending package, setting up a final vote later on today. Lawmakers are racing to avoid a partial government shutdown only months after emerging from the longest closure in U.S. history, with a hard deadline looming on January 30th. On Wall Street, the Dow up by 292 points, the Nasdaq rose 58, the S&P advanced 17. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Sheepdog, in theaters January 16th. I just want to wake up in the morning and feel something.
U.S. Army veteran Calvin Cole confronts his past and through the tough love and support of his community finds the courage to rebuild.
Sometimes we gotta fall apart to find ourselves all over again.
Raw, real, and powerful, critics hail Sheepdog as one of the best films of the year, and the Charlie Kirk Show declares it a must-see film. See Sheepdog in theaters Friday, January 16th. Rated R, under 17, not admitted without parent.
It's a new year. Ready for a fresh start or career reboot? At My Computer Career, prep for a more recession-resistant future in the high-demand fields of IT, cybersecurity, in months, not years, including AI. Whether you're starting out or switching careers, no prior training is needed. Attend school online from home or on campus. Go to mycomputercareer.edu to take the free career evaluation today. mycomputercareer.edu, an elite CompTIA certification partner. Financial aid is available to those who qualify, including VA benefits.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
Chilly evening with temperatures hovering in the lower 30s. Light flurries are possible in the metro, mainly between 8 and midnight. Areas east have a slightly better chance at minor accumulations where flurries to a half-inch remain possible. I do keep an eye on those roadways. It's cold tonight with temperatures falling into the upper 20s. Tomorrow brings back milder highs in the mid-40s ahead of Arctic air this weekend. With your first alert forecast, I'm meteorologist Leah Hill.
This hour of News Talk STL is brought to you by Rodney and Jen Wallner and the entire Wallner home selling team at Berkshire Hathaway. Call them today at 314-810-SOLD. 314-810-SOLD.
Looking for the best selection of firearms in the St. Louis region? Drive to Osage County Guns. Conveniently located off I-70, just 25 minutes from St. Charles. We've got thousands of guns in stock, the largest selection of handguns, rifles, and shotguns around. Trade in or sell your old guns for cash and shop our wide variety of premium Winchester ammunition made right here in the USA. Visit us online at ocgmo.com, or better yet, make the drive to Osage County Guns and see why we're the St. Louis region's favorite.
Remember those magical moments in Mom's Kitchen? The heavenly aroma of fresh baked cookies? At Trolley Stop Bakery in Chesterfield's Forum Shopping Center, our co-op of talented bakers has been perfecting that homemade magic for 4 decades. From the gooeyest cookies in town to custom pies, cobbler's, and cakes, everything's made from scratch, just like Mom and Grandma's recipes. Need that perfect corporate gift? We ship our famous cookies nationwide. The Trolley Stop Bakery, 67 Forum Shopping Center, or TrolleyStopBakery.com. Because some traditions are too sweet not to share.
On the next Larry Connors USA.
Today's story behind the story, when I decided to become a pilot and scare the daylights out of myself.
Larry Connors USA. Now weeknights 6 until 8 on News Talk STL. This hour of Jones and Arps is brought to you by Stiefel. Contact your Stiefel financial advisor at stiefel.com. That's STIFEL.com. Tim Jones and Chris Arps in the afternoon.
The 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
The more you remove voting from Election Day, the more opportunity you're offering for people to commit fraud.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
I think the Democrats are so short-sighted in this tactic they have now. They just cheat at any cost to win elections.
You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier. You said you were, but now you got to be honest. I'm going to be honest with you.
What are we doing wrong here?
As a former leader in the House, I think you can put your finger on it. It's called leadership. We don't have it.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
President Trump is threatening to invoke the Insurrection Act to crack down on protests after a second shooting involving a federal officer in Minneapolis. The president writes on social media that if Minnesota politicians don't stop people from attacking ICE agents, he will, quote, quickly put an end to the travesty. DHS says a federal officer shot a man last night after they say the man ran from a targeted traffic stop and attacked the officer. The shooting touched off hours of clashes between protesters and law enforcement just a week after an immigration agent killed a woman in the city.
406, and welcome into the Thursday, January 15th edition of the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show. Thank you all for joining us today. Always appreciate it. If you are watching on the stream, newstalkstl.com, you see that my partner Tim Jones is not here, but a familiar face and voice is with us. He is Jim Gwinner. He is with the LS2 group.
That's right.
He is a public affairs, political. You don't want to be called a political anymore, right?
Yeah,
you
you
political?
just
like
a public
affairs professional. professional.
The taller, better-looking version of Tim.
I love that. I love this. So Jim Gwinner, of course, he's been with us a few times. He's going to be with us throughout the show. We've got a big show today, a lot to talk about. Of course, what's happening in Minnesota, Minneapolis, what's happened in California with these ICE protests, quote unquote. But before we get into all that, let me tell you who we're going to have on the show today. We're going to have at 4:23 Steve Bucci. He's a visiting fellow at the Heritage Foundation. We're going to talk to Steve about all the national defense headlines, especially what's going on in Iran, what's going on in Greenland. Another U.S. oil tanker was seized this morning, so we're going to get all of that. Steve Bucci's thoughts on all of that. Chris's Corner at 4:45. You know, I did a Chris's Corner last week, Jim, about how Josh Hawley seems to have strayed from his conservative roots, voting for that Venezuela War Powers resolution. He sided with 4 other Republicans and all the Democrats to pass that Wars Power resolution. It was not a final vote.
Right.
The final vote was held last night, and surprise, surprise, Senator Hawley had a change of heart, and so I'm going to do a Chris's Corner at 4:45, giving my thoughts on that. 5:06, of course. Is Tim's going to call in? I should read the sheet, shouldn't I?
He's supposed to call in. You know, I'll text him and make sure he's still up to it because I warned him. I said, Jim Gwinner's going to do better than you. We don't even need you, Tim.
He's going to call in at 4:30 then if you put him.
I'll do my Tim impression.
There you go. We will have the Speaker's Stump Speech, or Tim Jones will call us live from D.C. at 5:07. And then at 5:23, we're going to speak again with Daniel Turner. He's founder and executive director of Power the Future. We're going to talk about the Venezuelan oil situation, gas prices, energy, and this is on my sheet. He's also a sheep farmer. Somehow that has to do with energy. We'll figure that out. What's the sheep farmer have to do with it?
Well, they did brag that he was a sheep farmer, so I'm sure he's mining those farts for energy.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that methane gas there. So
the wool keeps you warm.
Exactly.
You don't use as much energy.
And the farts. Also, natural gas, I think they call that.
And try to get through the whole show without saying fart.
Yes, past gas. And Jim, you are really in for a treat today. This is going to be a special show. You know, Joey usually does his Joey V movies on Friday, but Joey will be off tomorrow. He's taking a little time off. He's going to be cruising. And so we're going to have not one, but 2 movie reviews today. 28 years later, The Bone Temple and Dead Man's Wire. So, Joey, you've got a lot on your plate there. Don't disappoint us. 2 movies today. We're excited.
Bunch of dead guys running around. One is a zombie movie. The other one is a guy who's got a gun stuck to his head.
Okay. Well, that's enough. That wasn't enough of a tease for you. Stick around.
5:45.
5:45.
I'll be here.
Joey's V's movies, 28 years later, The Bone Temple, and Dead Man's Wire. All right, Jim.
All right.
You have to be living under a rock if you're not knowing what's going on in Minneapolis with the shooting last week of Renee Good, who hit that ICE officer while she was trying to flee, being apprehended. You hear the clip coming in there that there was another federal agent that shot a illegal immigrant, not an immigrant, as the media likes to say, illegal immigrant, shot him in the leg from a traffic stop. Reports that I've read have said that this illegal immigrant attacked the ICE officers with a broom. He was shot in the leg and taken into custody. Your overall thoughts on what's going on in Minneapolis?
Well, first of all, last week, and I just blanked on her name, but
Renee, I can't remember her name either, but Renee Good. I can remember her
Good.
last name, but I can never remember her first name.
I know. So the whole thing's horrible. You know, I still go back to, if authorities stop you, keep your hands where you can be seen and don't move.
I mean, you're taught that like when? In like 15 when you first start driving and your parents tell you that?
Right. I mean, I'm also the guy that, like, my buddy and I are shooting illegal fireworks off behind the house at 12 years old, and the cop rolls up because you're not supposed to be shooting fireworks off in town, and he starts running away. I tackle the kid because I am not going down by myself.
Be careful. I don't think there's a statute of limitations on firing illegal fireworks.
The police officer read me the riot act, and my dad's sitting on the back patio watching and laughing the whole time. He told me not to do it, and
Jim, snitches get stitches, though.
I know. But I'm tackled that kid. I was not going down alone.
I hear you, brother. Now, here's the thing. Look, we all have a constitutional right to protest. If you don't like what's going on with ICE, if you feel they're invading your city, if you feel that they are not treating quote-unquote immigrants correctly, you have a right to have a sign. You have a right to stand on the side, not impeding these officers in their duties. But what we're seeing now goes past that. We're seeing these protesters that are blocking cars so that ICE can't do their job. They're yelling at these people. They are doing things that go way beyond protesting. That's where it ends to me. Your legal protections, when you start impeding their job, that's where it ends. And you have the president who is threatening to invoke the Insurrection Act. I mean, this is insurrection if these people are fighting with law enforcement officers, and it doesn't seem that the local police are doing anything to stop it.
They're not. I mean, they're letting it happen. You've got an absolute right to stand on a sidewalk in a public place and hold your sign, and you can yell, and you can chant, and you can sing, and you can do whatever you want to do. But when you step into an area where you can cause yourself or someone else harm, then your rights tend to go away. It's like blocking an interstate.
And I also believe, too, that some of these public officials, like Jason Fry, who is the mayor of Minneapolis, Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, they're not telling these protesters to just protest peacefully or go home. They seem to be encouraging them to do what they're doing. And as I said, your constitutional protection ends once you start impeding these officers in their duty and you start harassing them physically. That's where it ends.
Right. You have a right to civil disobedience, to protest. You don't have a right to break laws. And if you do, in the course of your civil disobedience, break a law, you have the right to the law being handed at you.
Let me get your thoughts on this. U.S. District Judge Kate Menendez, who is in Minneapolis, she said that she is skeptical about decisions by ICE to stop or draw guns on motorists who are tailing their vehicles. I mean, the one reason why ICE officers are wearing masks, not because they're Klansmen, not because they're doing nefarious things and don't want the public to know, they are hiding their identities so that people don't know where they live. People won't stalk their families. I mean, we had a story about this the other day where some quote-unquote whistleblower released like 1,800 ICE officers' names, basically putting them and their families' lives in danger. If you are operating under that type of situation and someone is tailing your car as an ICE officer, I don't see anything wrong with them stopping, getting out of the car with guns drawn, wondering, hey, who the hell are you? Why are you following us?
Right. You're creating a sense where those ICE agents need to know who is there and why they're there and why they're doing that. And I mean, it's I'm sorry, but it's one thing if you're alone on a road and it looks like someone's tailing you and you think it might be a cop. Well, you pull over to you call 911, say, I think there's a police officer behind me. I'm pulling off here. Could you please send some? There's ways to do things like that. You don't harass law enforcement when they're doing their court-appointed duties, for lack of a better phrase.
Exactly. And not only is this happening in Minneapolis, there was also reports of this going on in San Francisco or some city in California. A person was hurt. A projectile hit them in the face or in the eye. They could be possibly blinded. I mean, this is happening all over the country. And as I said, these local officials, to me, have blood on their hands, and they were responsible because I think they need to tell these people, protest peacefully, but once you cross that line, it's all no holds barred.
Yeah, they have a responsibility, maybe not a duty, but a responsibility to help ratchet down the tenor in the community. They need to be out there. They need to be asking people to be, exercise your First Amendment rights. By all means, do it all day long. Do it in a safe manner. Do it in a visible manner. But do it in a way that doesn't, one, put yourself or anybody else in harm's way.
Have you seen, I have seen on like the Nextdoor app and, the little neighborhood apps, that people are reporting that there are ICE agents in St. Louis. I've heard reports there are ICE agents in Kansas City. Have you heard those reports, and have you seen any ICE officers? I know you're not breaking the law, Jim, or doing anything to get on ICE's radar, but have you seen any ICE officers in the St. Louis area or heard of someone being.
No, I now can't say as I'm looking for them. I'll be on the Hill this weekend going to dinner, but
Right.
maybe they're on the Hill. They're not in West County. I haven't seen them in West County. I wish they were once in a while, but no, I have not noticed anything, and I really don't get on the Nextdoor app too much because my first name is not Karen.
But sometimes, the way that the Next app is, though, it gives you like one or two sentences.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like a tease where you're like, oh, okay, I've got to go to it because I want to know what they're talking about. So I got to admit, they do suck me in.
Some of it's nice, but some of it is just way too much info. I turn off the push notifications on that one.
Now, I want to ask you a little bit. If you don't want to get into this,
Sure.
I understand. My Chris's Corner 445 is on Josh Hawley, his
Right.
turnaround from his vote from last week. People on my Facebook page and on the internet were angry, to say it lightly, about Josh Hawley's voting with the Democrats. And a lot of people are scratching their heads wondering what has happened to him.
Right.
He seemed like a constitutional conservative. And in my Chris's Corner, I talked about how he has sided on votes with Cory Booker and Elizabeth Warren and other Democrats. I have a theory, and I've said it on the show. What is your theory, possibly, on why Josh seems to be straying off the reservation?
Well, or Zach. We can just call, I don't know.
I'm thinking of Zach Smith, our legal eagle from
I'm
Heritage
blanking.
Foundation.
Yeah, and I forgot
That's
what Senator
on my
Hawley's
mind.
middle name was. But, I think he's positioning himself potentially for a run for higher office eventually. Now, what you did not mention in your lead up to me asking me that question was, what about the picture of Josh on January 6th, 5 years ago? You don't hear about that anymore.
Yeah.
He's positioned himself as a populist, as he's espoused positions on labor, on minimum wage. He's taking a very pro everyman kind of approach to his policy. He still talks pro-life. He's still very much conservative in my mind, but he's also, and I see this in the party a little bit, the Republican Party is gathering more labor voters, more blue-collar workers over the years. That's a lot of the Trump voters, okay? So those Trump blue-collar voters. Hawley is smart. Hawley is keeping his eye on something he may want to do in the future, and I think you're seeing an evolution of his positions so that he can position himself to be more broadly appealed across the country if he decides to run for presidency.
Jim, that is the same point that I made. At first, I said that he's not up for re-election until 2030, I think it is. He's got a little time. He sees that in 2016 and in 2024, Donald Trump put together a coalition of blue-collar workers. That seems to be the direction of the party, and I think that he is trying to get ahead of that curve and be out in front of it. I think he's gotten a little too out front of it, and I think the grassroots kind of have brought him back. And the fact, as I said and you said, he doesn't run for re-election for four or more years. So,
and nobody runs for vice president.
Exactly. And you know how politics is, in 4 years, it could be a possibility no one ever remembers any of these votes if he tacks back towards the right.
We're not talking about the fist in the air on January 6th. I mean, he has successfully positioned himself away from that which was used against him shortly after that event, and it was one snippet of he's walking across. It was a live shot of video. It's a still frame. So I do think he's doing that. You look at, I'll pivot real quick to Governor Kehoe. When he first ran, UAW supported him. He owned a car dealership.
Yeah.
I mean, why wouldn't the UAW support somebody who had UAW workers working for him and they liked him?
Yeah. All right, 420. That, of course, is Jim Gwinner. He is a partner with LS2 Group, known him for a long time. He is a public affairs professional and a former political. I won't call him a political now. He's a public affairs professional now.
Yeah.
If you're watching on the stream, he's got a very nice tie on, white shirt. His shoes are shined.
They are.
So he's not in the down and dirty of the political world.
I came from Jeff City today. I came straight here from the Capitol.
We appreciate that, too.
Yeah.
All right, coming up, we're going to speak with Steve Bucci, visiting fellow of the Heritage Foundation, about Iran, about Greenland, about a whole bunch of national security issues. You're listening to the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show on 101.9, 94.1 News Talk STL, #1 for live and local conservative talk.
Follow us on Rumble at News Talk STL. From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
Chilly evening with temperatures hovering in the lower 30s. Light flurries are possible in the metro, mainly between 8 and midnight. Areas east have a slightly better chance at minor accumulations where flurries to a half-inch remain possible. And do keep an eye on those roadways. It's cold tonight with temperatures falling into the upper 20s. Tomorrow brings back milder highs in the mid-40s ahead of Arctic air this weekend. With your first alert forecast, I'm meteorologist Leah Hill.
Hey everyone, it's Todd Showalter with my buddy Joey V. Be sure to join me and Joey for the Right Mind Show, where we put the fun in our dysfunctional world. Saturdays at 5, right here at 1019 94.1 News Talk STL.
Well, we are definitely back to winter weather here in the heartland, and although I hope no one has to deal with this issue, if you have anything wrong with your pipes or your water during cold spells, man, that is trouble. But don't worry, I've got the solution for what ails you. Tim Jones here to tell you all about Ambassador Plumbing. Ambassador Plumbing. If water runs to it or through it, they do it. Ambassador Plumbing, a great local, independently owned, family-owned organization, entity, plumbing company right here in our backyard. If you have any issues over the next few days with this cold weather or anytime throughout the winter as we head towards spring, I want you to give Ambassador Plumbing a call. Been in business for, I believe, entering their 9th year now, family-owned and operated. Tim Morris, the master plumber there. No job too big or too small. His wonderful wife, Faustina, taking care of the books and keeping the lights running and going. Large jobs, small jobs, every job in between they can handle. Faucet install and repairs, toilet install and repairs, garbage disposal problems, water heaters, water softeners. If you're doing a whole home renovation, you need somebody really good to do the bathroom part because that's a specialty area. Ambassador Plumbing is the company you should call. 2 Corinthians is where they get their name. 2 Corinthians 5:20. Be an ambassador for Christ. Ambassador Plumbing, they're fully supportive of us. We're fully supportive of them. I want you to give them a call today. If you even think you might have a plumbing problem or you might be planning for a plumbing job anytime in the near future here in the new year. BBB rated, loved by everyone near and far. AmbassadorPlumbing.com. That's AmbassadorPlumbing.com.
Need promotional products or apparel for your business? Look no further than Blue Sky Promotions. This woman-owned, locally operated company in Bridgeton specializes in anything and everything promotional. From branded apparel and uniforms to custom giveaways and marketing materials, Blue Sky Promotions has you covered. Whether you're looking to stand out at a trade show, build brand awareness, or reward your employees, Blue Sky Promotions has the solutions you need. Visit BlueSkyPromotions.com or call 314-739-3531.
Ever feel like just a number in a waiting room? Hi, I'm Shannon Tribune, Director of Operations with Body of Health Direct Primary Care. Navigating the medical system can be a maze of stress. I'm your personal guide at Body of Health. I handle the messy parts of medical care, the logistics and complex coordination both in and outside our walls, so you and Dr. Tobler, that's my dad, can focus on what matters most, your health. At Body of Health, you're not just a patient, you're part of the family, because that's healthcare the way it ought to be. To learn more, schedule a discovery call at bodyofhealth.com.
Hey, Jamie Allman here. When your car needs attention, trust who I trust. Benchmark Complete Auto in Valley Park. 25 years as a family-owned and operated company, Benchmark is your Napa Auto Care Center for nearly every maintenance and repair, using the latest technology and top-quality parts. Need help with the bill? Well, ask about Napa's Easy Pay financing. Mention Jamie Allman and News Talk STL and get 10% off. BenchmarkAutoRepair.com, BenchmarkAutoRepair.com.
This Steve Bucci update is brought to you by Hydrodynamics. For all your lawn irrigation, outdoor lighting, drainage, hardscapes, and turf management, online at hydrodynamicscorp.com. You're listening to Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
President Trump repeatedly threatened to hit Iran hard in recent days and was thought to be mulling over possible military strikes. But with thousands of protesters now reported dead, yesterday President Trump said that he'd received assurances that there would be no more killings.
We have been informed by very important sources on the other side, and they've said the killing has stopped and the executions won't take place.
Iranian human rights groups had warned that one protester, Irfan Soltani, was scheduled to be executed yesterday. The regime now says he hasn't been sentenced to death.
427 on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps show. And Jim, we're old enough to remember the 1979 hostage crisis and that historical event. It's kind of weird to think that we could see 40 plus years later maybe the end of the Iranian regime after seeing its beginning.
Seen a lot of the old flags flying by the pro regime change protests. You know, the pro Shah, the pro monarchy, or the Republic people.
Pahlavi, I think that was named Shah Pahlavi.
Reza Pahlavi.
All right, we have on the line with us our resident foreign policy and military expert.
Steve Bucci, visiting fellow for Special Ops at the Heritage Foundation.
Oh, yes. What were you about to ask me?
Do you expect me to talk?
Steve, welcome to the show. As you heard, we've got Jim Gwinner back with us again. You've spoken with him a couple of times on the show.
Hey, Steve, how are you today?
I'm doing well. It's great to be back on the show. I'm glad you're there, and I look forward to the conversation.
We love having you. All right. Iran, of course, is in the news. The president was saber-rattling for a while there, saying that not that we were going to take military action, that we were going to do something if the Iranians didn't stop harming their people, killing their people. The president yesterday said that the killing is stopped and seems to have drawn back a little from that red line. A lot of folks are worried about that because they think that the Iranians were depending on us to help them in some way, and now that help may not be coming. Your overall thoughts, Steve?
Well, the first thing was I want to make sure that President Trump doesn't come out of this looking like, President Obama in Syria when he was in office, where he drew a red line, they went way over it, and he just did nothing. President Trump's reputation is not that in any way, shape, or form. So I have to assume whatever assurances and backing off that occurred by the Iranians to get him to change his mind, and possibly some influence or advice from the Israelis and the Saudis and others who apparently were hoping the president would wait a little while before he did anything, that we get some explanation for all that. Personally, I thought it was about time that, we do physically assist these folks. We've given them rhetorical support. There's been some economic power moves that have gone on, additional sanctions, raising tariffs on those who do the illegal business with Iran. But frankly, I think it's time that somebody goes in, either us or Israel, and takes out all of those IRGC Quds Force barracks and facilities, because they're the big hammer for the Iranian regime. They're the ones who do the most violent repression, the torture. They operate overseas too, and they do terrorism there, but inside the country, domestically, they're the most repressive arm of their security services. Targeting them, I thought, would have been a good thing for everybody. It would send a message to the people: we're not coming in to invade your country, but we're here to help the people that are in the streets protesting. So I have to assume President Trump had a pretty good reason for backing off. We'll see what happens here in the next week or two, because the Iranians have a really shoddy record as far as keeping promises. So I don't think our Navy assets that were moved into the region are moving out yet, which tells you something.
Steve, you kind of made me think of something when you mentioned both Israel and Saudi Arabia, neither of which are strong allies of Iran. But following the Iran, or the Israel, the battles and our taking out the reactor sites, the Israelis launched a lot of attacks on Iran, took out a lot of their missile technology capabilities. Where does that stand now? Because, standing here in St. Louis, I don't worry about the Republican guards attacking Pittsburgh, but the Israelis being neighbors, or the Saudis, it would seem to me, obviously, that would be where any kind of Iranian retaliation would be with soldiers, but with missile technology or, any of the short distance capabilities they have. Where does that stand now after the attacks? I know they haven't built it up 100% yet, but where are they?
They've repaired some of it. They've gotten some other stuff in from their allies there in Russia and China, but they are nowhere near the military capability that they had before the war with Israel. And as we realized during that war, that capability wasn't all that great anyway. Very few of the Iranian missiles and rockets got through to significant targets in Israel. They knocked most of them out of the sky. The other countries in the region helped, the Jordanians, the Saudis, different folks contributed to that, but it was mostly the Israelis. The Iranian regime is at the weakest it's ever been since 1979. Not only are they weakened by the direct attacks that both Israel and the United States did, and frankly did with pretty much impunity. There was nothing the Iranians could have done to hinder it at all, and even their response to that was pretty tepid. They shot a few rockets at some of our installations in the area, but most of it was bluster and not terribly effective. But we've also, or the Israelis, because we helped a little bit, have also taken out their other legs of their stool, if you will, Hamas, Hezbollah, the Syrian government, all of those proxy forces that have been part of Iran's threat. Hey, you mess with us, we're going to hit you where you never see it coming, because we got these proxies all over. Those proxies have been pretty much dismantled. Still some danger there. We're talking terror. You don't need big forces to do something, but way less of a threat profile than we ever gave him credit for before. So I think that may have been part of what drove Iran to call up the president and say, "Hey, Mr. President, we're willing to talk. We'll behave. Let's just back off on this," because they know they're not a completely toothless tiger,
right?
But it's a tiger with a lot of broken molars and incisors. I got to tell you,
I still wouldn't go up against a tiger if I had to.
We're speaking with Steve Bucci.
The Israelis are not afraid of that. So.
No.
We're speaking with Steve Bucci, visiting fellow at the Heritage Foundation. Steve, the Iranian regime has been in power for 46 years, and this is the first time in 46 years have I ever heard of plans for Khamenei to escape Tehran with about 20 aides and a bunch of money to Russia. Does this signal to you that the regime is close to falling? And from your military expertise, what could tip it over?
Well, I agree with you. When I saw that news report, I'd never seen anything like that, and I can't believe in past ones they didn't have some exit plan. But for them to have one and it get out and people talk about it tells you it was a much bigger deal than ever before. I think that the thing that would kick that last leg out from under them is what I mentioned earlier, is taking out the IRGC Quds Force. If we and Israel and maybe other countries in a coalition can go in there and really pull that tooth out by the root, a lot of dental analogies here, but it's that would, I believe, really cause them to topple and probably really energize the resistance movement that's begun there in the streets. That's why I'm kind of disappointed the president didn't move, because the people of Iran deserve to be free. Look, the Shah was not the greatest guy in the world. He was an autocrat, but the country was flourishing. They had education. Women could go to school. Women could work anywhere. They had female doctors. And now, the repression there is just horrific and has been for almost the entire 40-plus years. They deserve to be free. And with the mullahs gone, that would be such a game changer in the Middle East. The biggest source of terror across the region, both in actual actions and support of the actions of others, would be removed. And that would have an incredibly beneficial effect to just the peace and order in that region and, frankly, around the world, because they're also in Latin America, they're in Africa, they've got people working in a lot of different places. The mullahs need to go.
So you mentioned coalition. Obviously, the Israelis are nearby. The Saudis are nearby. Which nations in the region would, in your mind, besides the U.S., I'm sure Israel wants the mullahs, the regime out. But if Israel takes action, do the Saudis take part of that coalition? I know Jordan's a little closer in relations with Israel over the past, and Egypt has, I believe, they've signed the Abraham Accords. But what do other nations balk because Israel is taking action? Does Israel be supportive, kind of like in the Gulf War when they were being attacked by rockets from Iraq? Do they have to stand down in order to keep a coalition together? What is the reality on the ground in your take?
It is way advanced past what we did during the first Gulf War, where we had to tell the Israelis, don't shoot back, let us do it, because otherwise this coalition will break up. These countries have agreements under the Abraham Accords, and they definitely have a mutual enemy in Iran. I mean, Iran looks at Jordan and Saudi Arabia and Syria and all these folks as apostates anyway, because they're not, for the most part, they're all Sunnis.
Right.
But even the ones that are Shia, they're not the same sect of Shia Islam that they are in Iran, at least in the ruling party in Iran. And they don't like each other. They may all be Muslims, but they really, really look at them, in some cases worse than non-believers. And I think they're all a little tired of the mess that Iran has been fomenting the whole 40-plus years. So I think those larger Sunni countries that have come in agreement with Israel, include Egypt in there too, I could see all those folks at least contribute intelligence, air assets, and things like that to help push over this now tottering regime and be done with it.
What fills that space once it's gone?
Well, one hopes that the people will rise up, and the fact that there are a lot of educated, sophisticated people in Iran and in the expatriate community. Look, I lived through the whole thing with Iraq, where we brought in a lot of expats thinking that they were all going to be welcomed and everybody would love them and they would be the answer to everything. And they turned out to not be all that we thought they would be. I believe that this government has to come from folks that are in the country. They may get support from expats returning, but I don't see someone like the Crown Prince
the Shah's
riding in and taking over the country. I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's going to be some internal group organically coming up and setting these people free.
Speaking with Steve Bucci, visiting fellow at the Heritage Foundation. Steve, I want to pivot to Denmark. Last week, Denmark, France, Germany, Italy, Poland, and Spain, and the UK, they issued a joint statement declaring that, quote, Greenland belongs to its people. And this morning, European troops arrived in Greenland to do maneuvers. But a lot of folks are looking at this as if the United States decides to attack Greenland as some type of protection for them. We're hearing that if Donald Trump does take military action to take Greenland, that this will destroy NATO. I don't think the president would do that. But give us your thoughts and assessment on what's happening between NATO allies.
I think the idea of President Trump attacking Greenland is ludicrous. That is clearly, in my mind, a negotiating technique to communicate. Hey, I'm really serious about this. We have to upgrade the security of Greenland for all our sakes. And if you guys won't do it, we can do it ourselves. I don't think he wants to do that. We would much rather see the allies, either for Denmark by itself or everybody in a coalition kind of effort to upgrade the security around the waters, in the waters around Greenland and the whole vicinity. That's the ideal thing. That there are a lot of threats there. The Russians and the Chinese play pretty fast and loose in that region. They really both think they should be in charge of the Arctic, and Greenland is the key to defending the Arctic from the standpoint of Europe and NATO.
I haven't really. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
Well, the thought of 2 battalions of Marines landing on the shores of Greenland seems a little far-fetched. I would much more likely see 2 battalions of Marines going there on vacation and just not leaving. I think but you're right about the strategic value of Greenland and its access to the Arctic and the North Sea, and then whether it's the submarine lanes. And yes, I've watched The Diplomat, so I know this part. But that is just such a key shipping lanes, and it's the way out for Russia to enter the Atlantic. So I mean, our national security, it is vital. It is nice in one aspect to see the European soldiers or the European military assets on the ground. Maybe they stay there to upgrade the defenses. I mean, it's our early warning, it's our defense technology. It's not, I don't think, designed to be an offensive stopping point, but more of a defensive first line of awareness in that region. But it is key, and that's just a point I wanted to make.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to improvements in the defense posture there. I just hope we do it as an alliance in a positive way. I don't always agree with every method that the president uses, but the hardcore negotiating aspect of his method has borne a lot of fruit. It's kind of ruffled a lot of feathers, but it's got things done, including NATO allies spending more money on defense in general and that sort of thing. But we'll see where this goes. I was glad that we had folks going there to talk to them, so it's not all this public posturing kind of stuff and name calling. I don't think that's terribly useful among friends and allies.
That's Steve Bucci, visiting fellow at the Heritage Foundation, heritage.org, and on X, S. Bucci. Steve, thank you as always for enlightening us and giving us your wisdom, sir.
It's my pleasure, guys. It's always enjoyable, and I look forward to talking to you next week.
Have a great weekend.
Thanks, Steve.
All right, 4:45. Jim, next is Chris's Corner. We're going to talk about Josh Hawley's 180 from last week. I'm going to give my thoughts on it. You're listening to the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show on 101.9, 94.1 News Talk STL. Welcome home.
Follow Chris Arps on Twitter at Chris_Arps. From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
Chilly evening with temperatures hovering in the lower 30s. Light flurries are possible in the metro, mainly between 8 and midnight. Areas east have a slightly better chance at minor accumulations where flurries to a half-inch remain possible. I do keep an eye on those roadways. It's cold tonight with temperatures falling into the upper 20s. Tomorrow brings back milder highs in the mid-40s ahead of Arctic air this weekend. With your first alert forecast, I'm meteorologist Leah Hill.
If you have a phone, you have a radio.
Download the all-new News Talk STL app.
Love the all-new News Talk
Talk STL app.
On my way to work in the morning.
Usually I'm in the car.
I listen on the app in my car every morning going to work.
Download the News Talk STL app and listen anytime, anywhere.
Hey, when I came in today, I actually used, as I do always, Royal Bank Missouri's interactive teller machines, or their ITMs. As I've been telling you, these aren't your old school ATMs. With an ITM, you can talk to a real Royal Bank teller through video and audio, just like you're inside the branch, without ever leaving your car. I love them because they're fast, they're convenient, they're personal. I can make deposits, withdrawals, loan payments, cash checks, or transfer money. And if I need help, a real person is right there on the screen. And here's the part that really matters to me. They're open longer than normal banking hours, weekdays from 8 to 7 and Saturdays from 9 to 2. When you've got a busy schedule like I have, that makes a huge difference. I've banked with Royal Banks of Missouri for over 20 years now, and because they've always taken the time to understand what matters, and for me, that means convenience when life doesn't fit into banker's hours. With 16 locations across St. Louis, St. Charles, Illinois, even up in Northeast Missouri, Royal Banks, they're locally owned, independently run, and invested right here in our community. Learn more. Look them up on the line at royalbanksofmo.com, royalbanksofmo.com, Royal Banks of Missouri, member FDIC, equal housing lender.
I'm Dr. TJ, owner of the Institute of Natural Health, co-owner of Optimal Nutraceuticals, and the host of Wellness One. Wellness One is designed to cut through the nonsense and provide you common-sense, science-based information regarding health and wellness. On the show, we discuss topics like thyroid health, gut health, hormone optimization, and many others. Our show airs Saturdays at 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. and Sundays at 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. right here on Newstalk STL. And you can visit us at inhstl.com. That's inhstl.com.
Hey, it's Susie Moore. If new flooring makes you think hassle, think again, because Michael's Flooring is changing the game. For over 30 years, Michael's has been locally owned and trusted for quality, variety, and amazing service. Whether it's carpet, hardwood, laminate, luxury vinyl, or ceramic tile, their expert team makes installing new floors exciting, not stressful. That's why customers keep coming back. Visit Michael's Flooring at St. Peter's, Starting Prairie, Creve Coeur, or online at igotfloored.com. That's igotfloored.com.
Jamie Allman here, tossing and turning over retirement worries. You're not alone. 3 out of 4 Americans share your concern about having enough saved. But here's the thing. A comfortable retirement isn't out of reach, even if you're planning for 30 or 40 years ahead. Every day, Jeff Portman from the Gemini Wealth Group helps people avoid the critical mistakes that can derail their retirement. Build your path to financial confidence. Visit GeminiWealthGroup.com or call Jeff directly at 314-888-0123.
Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor. Member FINRA, SIPC.
This hour of Jones and Arps is brought to you by Stifel. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com. You're listening to Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
Dr. Verma, I wasn't sure I understood your answer to Senator Moody a moment ago. Do you think that men can get pregnant?
I hesitated there because I wasn't sure where the conversation was going or what the goal was. I mean, I do take care of patients with different identities. I take care of many women. I take care of people with different identities. And so that's where I paused. I think, I wasn't sure where you were going with that.
Well, the goal is just the truth. So can men get pregnant?
Again, the reason I paused there is I'm not really sure what the goal of the question is.
The goal is just to establish a biological reality. You just said a moment ago that science and evidence should control, not politics. Absolutely. So let's just test that proposition. Can men get pregnant?
I take care of people with many identities.
450 on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps show. Jim, that is a OB-GYN who can't answer the question, can men get pregnant? I've never gone to medical school. You've never gone to medical school. Can you answer that question?
I'm just going to point you to a scene from the movie Life of Brian by Monty Python. Right. And no.
Pretty simple question, wasn't it?
It's the easiest question. You just don't have the part.
Yeah. It's amazing that, and she's not the only one that I've seen that's testified before Congress, that these people tie themselves up in knots with the basic question, can a man get pregnant.
Right.
I mean, you saw Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson. I can't ever remember which order it is. Couldn't tell us the definition of a woman.
Right.
These people are out there, man.
It's just I understand and I get where a physician is wanting to be respectful to her patients. Totally understand that. But it's a simple yes or no question.
Yeah, and I'm going to answer too. No, a man cannot get
We got
pregnant.
2 no's. Joey, how are you?
I think she was thinking about all her clients. She probably specializes in people who are transitioning, and she just didn't want to make them angry because then you're messing with her money.
Well, then you got to have a whole new base of clients. You know,
I guess so.
you take them one direction, then take them back.
Money trumps common sense and integrity. I guess that's what that means. Now, that clip, that was Josh Hawley. That's the Josh Hawley we all know and love, the conservative, the no-nonsense conservative. Last week, he voted with the Democrats against our president. He's done a lot of votes that have been what many would consider not conservative. But he did a complete turnaround yesterday and voted with the Republicans and broke a tie. And so I'm going to talk about that next on Chris's Corner.
Chris.
And if you don't know, now you know.
And now, Chris's Corner.
The title of today's Chris's Corner is Josh Hawley's Sudden Case of Clarity. Last week, Josh Hawley made headlines in Missouri, and not in a good way. He voted with Democrats and a handful of Republicans to advance a war powers resolution aimed at Venezuela. That vote sent a clear signal Hawley was willing to side with the left to rebuke a Republican president over foreign policy, even when there were no active U.S. combat operations underway. Missouri conservatives noticed. Then, late Wednesday night, something interesting happened. The Senate voted 51-50 to kill that same resolution, with Vice President J.D. Vance breaking the tie, and suddenly, Josh Hawley had a change of heart. He flipped. Same with Senator Todd Young of Alaska. Now, I'm glad the resolution failed, and I'm glad Hawley ultimately voted the right way. But here's the problem. Why did it take a political scare to get there? Because let's be honest, nothing materially changed between last week and this week. No new war, no new deployment, no new facts on the ground in Venezuela. What changed was the blowback. Last week's vote fit neatly into the pattern we've been watching for years. Josh Hawley drifting toward a brand of populism that reflexively distrusts Republican presidents, American power, and traditional conservative instincts while sounding increasingly comfortable voting alongside Democrats when it suits his narrative. This week's flip suggests something else entirely, political recalibration. Hawley didn't suddenly discover that there were no active military operations. That argument existed before his first vote. He just chose to ignore it, and that's the real story here. Josh Hawley has become a senator who tests boundaries, floats leftward, and then snaps back when the base pushes hard enough. He advances the resolution with Democrats, then retreats when the consequences become real. That's not leadership, that's triangulation. Conservatives don't expect perfection. We do expect consistency. We expect senators to apply first principles before they cast a vote, not after the phones light up and the activists revolt. And this wasn't some obscure procedural move. War powers votes matter. They send signals to our allies, our enemies, and our own party about how seriously we take executive authority, national security, and constitutional order. Last week, Hawley signaled skepticism of a Republican president confronting a narco-state dictator. This week, he signaled that he didn't like the political optics of that skepticism. That whiplash reinforces a concern Missouri conservatives have been voicing for a while now. Josh Hawley often seems more interested in positioning than in principle. I'll give him credit for correcting course, but I won't ignore the fact that he had to correct it at all. Because conservatives don't want senators who need a second vote to get it right. We want senators who know that what they believe before the roll is called. Last week, Josh Hawley voted like a populist skeptic. This week, he voted like a Republican. The question Missouri voters should be asking is simple. Which Josh Hawley shows up next time? The first one or the second one? And that is today's Chris's Corner. Jim, any thoughts on that?
Well, I think, we mentioned a little bit earlier.
Was I harsh on Josh?
No, I think you were pointing out the fact that he's not running for, 4 more years?
4 more years, yes.
There's a presidential race between the last cycle and this cycle. He'll win the Senate race if he doesn't decide to do something again. He's probably in that Senate seat as long as he wants that Senate seat, in lack of a better phrase. But he has become more and more populist. I can't remember if I was talking to you on air 30 minutes ago, or if we were in the show prep earlier. But you don't see the conversation around his hand up in the air on January 6th.
Right.
He's moved away from that. He's taken positions with labor. He's taken positions on the minimum wage. He's taken a lot of things that are very populist, and he's calibrating himself to be broadly liked and trying to look at building a large coalition, because let's face it, the large coalitions are what win elections.
I just wonder, too, how much of the reason why Josh doesn't talk too much about the fist in the air, and we don't see that too often, is because while he had his fist up in the air and there's a very strong picture of him, that video later surfaced of him running through the Capitol when the protesters breached the Capitol. So it's kind of like, here you are, Mr. Tough Guy, hand in the air, and here's a picture of you fleeing when protesters are coming in. So maybe that's why he didn't talk about that very much.
Yeah, and it was it was a funny little video.
It was very funny.
It was a nice run.
All right, coming up, we're going to have Speaker Tim Jones. He's going to join us live from D.C., and then we'll talk to Daniel Turner. He's founder and executive director of Power the Future. We're going to talk about that Venezuelan oil tanker that was seized earlier today. Listening to the Tim Jones and Chris Arps show on 101.9, 94.1 News Talk STL.
Charcoal. Rockwood is made from 100% pure Missouri oak and hickory, so you're cooking with the best and supporting local industry and a local business all at once. There's over 100 area Rockwood retailers. Find yours at rockwoodcharcoal.com.
I've told you how Tom Shaw Realtors can help you buy, sell homes, farms, acreage. Listen to what Tom Shaw Realtors did in 2025. More than 100 properties sold, $52 million in sales. ShawRealtors.com.
Why has Steph's Pizza become the place to go for St. Louis-style pizza, appetizers, salads, and pastas? One taste and you'll know. Dine in, pick up, delivery, even DoorDash. Locally owned and operated with legendary pizza and a new location in Lake St. Louis at 111 Palm Fort Trail. In St. Peters, St. Charles, and the original Stephanitas in O'Fallon on Veterans Memorial Parkway. Steph's Pizza is proud to be part of the News Talk STL family. Check them out at stephspizza.com. And remember, tonight's a good night for Steph's Pizza.
Jeffco Patriot Radio.
Hey guys, Jefferson County Councilman Billy Crow here from Jeffco Patriot Radio. On behalf of Tim Jones and I just want to thank you for making Jeffco Patriot Radio the #1 listened to show on Sundays here on News Talk STL, where we dive into all the things happening in and around Jefferson County. Check Tim Jones and I out on Jeffco Patriot Radio this and every Sunday at high noon here on 101.9, 94.1 News Talk STL.
Jeffco Patriot Radio.
License number E2014A.
Hey, it's good to see you.
At Grasser Home Services, we're looking for happy plumbers to join our team. Plumbers who are polite, honest, and do the job right.
And love dogs. They must love dogs.
Plumbers who treat customers' homes with respect, care about the details, and show up on time.
Know a happy plumber who's great with dogs?
Have them call Grasser Home Services.
Green is always Grasser at GrasserHomeservices.com.
KLGY HD3 Clayton, K270BW Bellefonte, KNBS Bowling Green. This is News Talk STL at 101.9, 94.1, and always streaming at newstalkstl.com.
News this hour from Town Hall. I'm Keith Peters in Washington. President Trump is threatening to invoke the Insurrection Act in response to unrest in Minneapolis. White House correspondent Greg Clugston reports.
As protests against ICE officers in Minneapolis continue, the president said he may have to deploy the U.S. military or federalize the National Guard for domestic law enforcement. In a social media post, he referred to protesters as insurrectionists and ICE agents as patriots. The Insurrection Act is a rarely used federal law, but the president threatened its use after a federal officer shot and wounded a man who had attacked the officer with a shovel. Greg Clugston, Washington.
Iran continues its efforts to stifle dissent. Correspondent Karen Chamas reports.
As Iran's crackdown on protests continued, the government closed its airspace to commercial flights for hours without explanation, as tensions remained high with the United States. International carriers diverted flights north and south around Iran, but the closure appeared to expire and several domestic flights were in the air after 7 a.m. on Thursday. The airspace closure comes as some personnel at a U.S. military base in Qatar were advised to evacuate. I'm Karen Chamas.
Federal prosecutors are investigating a major betting scheme involving NCAA and Chinese Basketball Association games. The investigation has implicated 26 people, including over a dozen college basketball players who allegedly tried to fix games. Prosecutors say gamblers recruited players with promises of big payments for underperforming. The fixers then bet against the players' teams, defrauding sports books and other bettors. On Wall Street, the Dow by 292 points, the Nasdaq rose 58, the S&P advanced 17. More at townhall.com.
This is Dennis Prager for AmFed Coin and Bullion. There's something about the feel of a gold coin in your hand and the way the light reflects off its intricate details that has always captivated me. Nick Grovich, AmFed's owner, turned that same passion into his livelihood. Nick began collecting coins as a teen, and that interest grew into a nationally respected business offering only the finest quality coins at the most competitive prices. But the truth is that although Nick is a rare coin dealer, he doesn't believe in rare coins. Rare coins do not make sound investments, but they do make dealers a lot of money. See, that's part of what I respect about him. AmFed specializes in buying non-performing numismatic coins and turning them into gold or silver investments that provide liquidity and perform competitively against the market. Whether you're buying or selling, call 800-221-7694. That's 800-221-7694. AmericanFederal.com.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
Chilly evening with temperatures hovering in the lower 30s. Light flurries are possible in the metro, mainly between 8 and midnight. Areas east have a slightly better chance at minor accumulations where flurries to a half-inch remain possible. And do keep an eye on those roadways. It's cold tonight with temperatures falling into the upper 20s. Tomorrow brings back milder highs in the mid-40s ahead of Arctic air this weekend. With your first alert forecast, I'm meteorologist Leah Hill.
This hour of News Talk STL is brought to you by Stifel, serving investors for over 130 years. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com.
Hey, Jamie Allman here for my favorite go-to store for seafood, gourmet goodness, and tons of wine. It's Stars, 1135 South Big Bend. A huge selection of seafood flown in from the coast. Lemon sole, halibut, Maryland lump crab, Gulf shrimp, and you gotta try the trout dip. Plus, imported and domestic hand-cut cheeses, lots of hand-picked wines at great prices, hard-to-find gourmet foods, and fresh roasted coffee using only the best quality beans. Stars, 1135 South Big Bend, just off of Highway 40.
Why leave your company's story to chance? In today's digital world, video content isn't just an option. It's essential for your success. At Blue Ocean Media Group, we've spent decades crafting compelling visual stories for businesses just like yours. From concept to completion, our award-winning team transforms your vision into powerful video content that connects with your audience and drives results. Don't trust your brand to amateurs. Partner with Blue Ocean Media Group. Visit blueoceanmediagroup.com today, and let's bring your story to life.
What happens next?
Nicolas Maduro had multiple opportunities to avoid this.
Happens right here.
We will secure our borders. We will stop the terrorists. We will crash the cartels.
101.9 and 94.1. News Talk STL. Tim Jones and Chris Arps in the afternoon.
The 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
The more you remove voting from Election Day, the more opportunity you're offering for people to commit fraud.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
I think the Democrats are so short-sighted in this tactic they have now. They just cheat at any cost to win elections.
You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier. You said you were, but now you got to be honest. I'm going to be honest with you.
What are we doing wrong here?
As a former leader in the House, I think you can put your finger on it. It's called leadership. We don't have it.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
Renee Good unfortunately and tragically killed?
Are you asking me my
Yeah.
opinion? Because an ICE agent acted recklessly and killed her unjustifiably.
Oh, okay. So you're a biased reporter with a left-wing opinion.
What do you want me to do?
Yeah, because you're a left-wing hack. You're not a reporter. You're posing in this room as a journalist, and it's so clear by the premise of your question. And you and the people in the media who have such biases but fake like you're a journalist, you shouldn't even be sitting in that seat. But you're pretending like you're a journalist, but you're a left-wing activist. And the question that you just raised and your answer proves your bias.
506 on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps show, and that is White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt letting that reporter, quote-unquote, have it. And, Jim, I can't disagree with anything that she said.
No. I mean, you can.
I mean, what kind of question was that?
It was biased. It was. I mean, I miss the era when report. We only need 30. No, not except this show. We only need 30 minutes of network news. I mean, flip on Walter Cronkite at 5:30. Flip it off at 6. You got more than enough you need for the day, except listening to this show.
I agree with that. All right, let's bring in my partner and co-host who is in the swamp.
Listen to me, listen to me.
I'm very consistent. I'm a very stable genius.
It's time for the Speaker's Stump Speech, sponsored by Hanson's Tree Service at hansonstree.com.
Tim, you need a little feistiness to be the White House press secretary, especially when you're facing a crowd like the liberal press there in the room with you. Your thoughts on that, sir? And how are you?
Doing great, Jim. Thanks for sitting in one of the big chairs today. Great
I'm happy to be
guys.
here.
And I have to say, as people like us who are in the communications and media world and everything we've seen in the last few decades, I mean, the White House, the Republican presidents over the last, few generations, haven't they had the most amazing press secretaries? And I'll point out the majority of them have been lady leaders, fantastic women, right? Mm-hmm. And they seem to be the most prepared, the most passionate, the most able to make a point. I mean, you look at the careers they've had, Dana Perino and Kayleigh McEnany, and now Caroline Leavitt. And there's been many more. And I love these ladies especially because they're so poised, they're so articulate, and unlike, the goofy French lady that Joe Biden had, Karine Jean-Pierre, they're not reading from anything, right? Because, fellas, you know this to be true. When you're talking about the truth, you don't have to refer to anything, and you don't have to make anything up.
Yeah.
You speak from the heart.
Yeah. Tim, I got one question since I know you're knee-deep in the swamp of D.C. Have you seen my money? All right? It keeps going there. What are they doing with it?
Jim, I was up there this week with a group of great St. Charlesians, the Hanson and the McFarland family, and a couple of times that question came up. They were like, "Oh my gosh, look at!" They were like, some of them had never been to D.C. and they're like, "This is spectacular. Mm-hmm. This is beautiful. This is wonderful." But at the same time, it's that love-hate relationship. You're like, "What is all this here for? Like, what is that giant, big marble brick and stone building that doesn't even have a sign on it?" And I said, all of this was built by all of us.
Right.
And unfortunately, the monuments are spectacular, the homages to the founding and the birth and then the buildup of this wonderful nation, that's all great. But then you look at some of this other stuff, and it's just one temple after another to nothing more than government. Like the biggest example, of course, was when we were standing outside the Natural History Museum, looked across the street. I said, "There's the IRS, all 3 city blocks of it." And these folks said, "Why?" And I said, "I have no answer for you." Yeah. It's just something that we, the people, have unfortunately kind of conceded to over the last 250 years. And although there's so much that's great about America, there is so much that you see in D.C. that just needs to be fixed and taken back to the states.
One thing Caroline Leavitt could have said to that reporter was, 1, Renee Good, she sped off. 2, she hit the agent, and now he has internal bleeding. Go report that. I wish she would have said that. Tim, probably one of the big stories there in D.C. where you're at, and we've been discussing it throughout the show, is the change of heart in Senator Josh Hawley. He voted against the War Powers resolution yesterday. Any talk around D.C. about that, and your thoughts on the senator's change of heart?
Funny you bring that up. I just so happen to have run into
Josh Hawley?
You know what? I'm not gonna. No, I didn't run in the center. I'm not. You know what? I'm not even gonna mention the name of this very, very senior staffer. You guys both know him.
All right.
But his comment to me was, because this may have been off the record. I'm not sure, but the comment was basically, Mr. Speaker, we just want to make sure that there's no boots on the ground in Venezuela. We both kind of laughed, and I said, point well taken. But my response would have been, if we'd had a longer time to talk, because it was a quick conversation, would have been, well, shouldn't that have been discussed before the vote was taken and all the drama then unfolded, right? Like, couldn't that assurance have been made? But the senator, the senator said that the reason that he changed his vote was because the White House, I think it was Marco Rubio, gave him assurances that before any additional major action would be decided, they would speak with Congress, and they made an assurance that there would be no boots on the ground U.S. military men and women. And I think that part definitely is something that Donald Trump did run on, right? And so, in a way, the senator was kind of asking the president to stand by one of his campaign promises. So I just think my reaction to all of this is, well, instead of having this drama play out, in full technicolor in the media, maybe that discussion could have been had before that vote was taken.
So what else is going on in D.C. these days? I know the Senate's coming. They're going to take a break for a little bit, and my money's still there. I'm starting to get my W-2s and my 1099s and all my stuff for taxes and my kids, and they're going to get a check from me like they do every year. But, it's very obvious to me why D.C. Metro never has a recession. There's way too much of my money up there.
And let's put this into perspective, Tim, before you start. Today is January 15th. Congress reconvened in January. After this afternoon, they're taking a 10-day recess.
I could use those kind of hours.
I learned, it's interesting, you guys must have a Vulcan mind meld with me. You're asking me all the things that I was going to talk about.
I'm sitting in your chair. I'm sitting in your chair. It's osmosis.
That must be it. It's osmosis, yeah. One of the other things I learned from our good friend, Congressman Eric Burleson, was along these very lines. And what he brought up was the fact that there is some discussion, rather passionate discussion, about having Reconciliation 2.0. and addressing all the things that weren't addressed in Reconciliation 1.0. You guys remember back at that time, there was a bunch of extra things that did not make it, that were left on the cutting room floor that many people thought should have been pursued, and they thought the one big beautiful bill was big enough, and they moved forward with what they had, and they left some things aside. And remember what they said at that time? Oh, we'll get back to this later. Well, Eric is now sitting here going, it's January. He's having the same thoughts in his head that you guys just asked me about. And it is January 15th. They're going to have a recess. They're going to have an August recess. It's a campaign year. And Eric was like, are you kidding me? We're really not going to do anything the rest of the year. We're all just going to sit around and wait to go home and campaign late summer. And the other thing he told me, it was very interesting, was he said, do you know that the moderates, Eric is in the House Freedom Caucus, conservative guy, conservative warhorse. He said, what he found interesting was that when you have direct conversations with your colleagues, even the ones that may not be with you where you are on the Republican philosophical spectrum, because it is a big spectrum with a lot of different diverse views, he has found that a lot of the moderates would like to do a Reconciliation 2.0 as well. And I said, well, why aren't you guys doing that? Because Eric said leadership tells us, leadership goes to the moderates and says the conservatives don't want to do this, and then leadership goes to the conservatives and says the moderates don't want to do this. Turns out the ends of the spectrum actually both want to do something, because why? Because that's good politics and that's good public policy. Last year was a million years ago, right, fellas, politically, and in the minds of most voters. And when voters go to the ballot box later this year, are they really going to remember what necessarily was done in the One Big Beautiful Bill a year and a half ago? And Eric said, we were given this mandate of it, in the sense that there's a trifecta of Republican governance, House, Senate, White House. And so, Jim, long story short, there is the action up in D.C. is a call to do a Reconciliation 2.0 bill. And there is a building momentum from both the conservative and the more moderate wings of the Republican caucus That's exactly what they want. It's leadership that doesn't want to necessarily do this because we're in an election year and, oh, my gosh, what if something goes wrong? But many of the rank and file members are beginning to demand that do happen so they can prove to the American people this is why you send Republicans to Washington, D.C. Otherwise, what's the point?
Speaking with my partner and co-host Tim Jones from The Swamp today. Tim, the other big issue on Capitol Hill is today was the last day of open enrollment for Obamacare. Senator John Thune, Majority Leader, said that if a Obamacare deal was going to be worked out, it had to be worked out by the end of the month. Senators are going on a 10-day vacation vacation, so that's probably not going to happen. You've got Ohio Senator Bernie Moreno. He is working to try to get a Obamacare bill passed. Senator Ron Johnson, who's very conservative from Wisconsin, he said he's working with some Senate Democrats to restore enhanced subsidies for people making over 400% of the federal poverty level with anti-fraud reforms. They're really scrambling. They're trying to get something done with these Obamacare tax credits because it's an election year and because the Majority Leader said they need to do this by the end of the month. Your thoughts on all of this?
I don't believe it happens. The Obamacare COVID-era super subsidies needed to be renewed, so there was no break in the subsidization before the end of the year. That did not happen. That deadline came and went. We're now approaching a final. Seems like nothing's ever quite dead in D.C. Is it?
No.
But allegedly, we're approaching a final deadline. Is that really a deadline? Like I said, seems like nothing is ever really dead in D.C. But if you believe them, then the end of the month is that deadline. I don't think anything with the word Obamacare is going to be approved by both houses of Congress. Republicans have never approved as a whole. There have been some outliers. There have been some people that have departed. John McCain. There was recently a vote last week where some Republicans did depart. But as a whole, the House and the Senate, controlled by Republicans, has never come together and supported a package with the word Obamacare anywhere in it because most Republicans in this country railed against Obamacare for many years and used it very successfully politically, right? I mean, under Obama, more Republican legislative seats were won in this country than under any other Democratic president ever in our nation's history. I was in the legislature at that time. I was watching these numbers. I think it ended up being like the Republicans picked up 1,200 legislative seats across the country during Obama's tenure, and most of it was because of issues involving immigration and health care. And so if there's going to be something newly done on health care, I think it's going to be called something different. I think it's going to look very different. I know the White House unveiled their health care reform package
I was going to
today.
talk about that.
I wish they would have done it like 3 months ago. Like, what were they waiting for? But this is typical Washington, D.C. You know, you get to the end of the rope on something, suddenly there's a fire, nobody knows where the extinguisher is, and we're running around with our hair on fire trying to put it out and come up with a different plan. I hope they come up with something that is along the lines of what many Republicans have been asking for, and that is an expansion of health savings account, more freedom of choice, because let's be honest, Obamacare has been an absolute failure. It has failed on all its promises. It has not bent the cost curve. Costs have dramatically skyrocketed. Care has gone down. Less doctors are taking Medicaid patients now than they were before Obamacare was instituted. So why in the world would we keep talking about this failed system? I know it's very popular with the media. I know it's very popular with the left. It's really fun to say that Republicans hate Americans when it comes to health care. None of that's true, but the Republicans do have to come up with an alternative plan.
Well, and even Hawley, his HSA, I think it was the HSA tax deductibility or the expenses of up to $25,000. I believe he was putting the idea out on the tax on the taxability of insurance premiums, which I think should be both going to individuals and businesses, because if businesses are providing, they should take the same benefit for the employees. But yeah, can't we just get rid of Obamacare? Can't we just? We've got majority in both chambers. We've got a president. Can't we just wipe it out?
And Jim, you made a great point there. It's not that Republicans don't have ideas on health care. They can't seem to come up with one idea on health care. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like the Democrats are so good at that, right? They're so good at taking some giant smoking pile of you-know-what, things we can't say on the radio, wrapping it in some fancy Christmas wrapping a big bow on it and saying, hey, look, a new government program. This is going to help everybody out. And it doesn't matter if it actually works or not. It does any of that. But they're so good at doing that, aren't they? Republicans, on the other hand, have a lot of great ideas, but they never seem to be able to settle on one with any sort of a majority. If it in their best interest, they better do it this time, because once again, this is what the Democrats are going to use to beat Republicans over the head over heading into an election year. Affordability, and you hate health care.
There's that word affordability again. Yeah.
Republicans' problem is they have more of their members in purple modern districts than Democrats have in purple modern districts. And you got 20 Republicans that think they're going to lose their seats if they don't support some type of Obamacare. And that's one of the big dilemmas that we have.
Right.
Because they all stick together. They don't have a lot of purple seats to defend.
No. No. But even you saw.
But the problem is, Thune has basically said over and over again, I don't care how many discharge petitions they send me from the House, I'm not doing Obamacare subsidy expansions. And so they're going to have to come up with something else. I hope they do. It would actually be probably much better policy. It would actually be better for our healthcare system. It would be better for America.
And Chris, when I was on the show about 2 months ago, you and I were talking as they were looking at extending the subsidies. We were talking about, are the Republicans going to extend the subsidies going into an election year? It's really hard for the government to take away something that it or give back something that it's taken from us. And kind of the converse is true, that they took away these subsidies or let them expire. Do they do this? Do they do it closer to election and try and look like the heroes? Or do they do this sooner rather than later?
My personal opinion, if they're going to do something like this, it has to be sooner than later before the Democrats start putting out commercials showing a woman with 5 kids, 2 of them have cancer, and she can't afford her $5,000 a month insurance premium now. That's just the politics of, not that I agree with it, but that's just how they're going to play the politics of this, unfortunately.
And 3 months from today, your taxes are due.
Yeah.
Last thing I'll say on that is I wish Congress would do something for the majority of Americans on health care. Obamacare only affects 7% of the population, but the media would have you believe that every single person is on government-run health care, because that's what they want. But the reality is we need to do something for all Americans, not just those who may have lost their Obamacare super subsidy.
And that is Speaker Tim Jones live from the swamp. Not to get all up in your business, Tim, what are you doing tonight?
We're going to be packing up things pretty quickly, heading home. I'll be back in the studio tomorrow. We had a great visit up here, did a lot, saw a lot, got a lot accomplished, worked hard with all of our D.C. partners on the big Governor Kehoe tax cut proposal. So you're going to hear more about that in the next few weeks ahead.
Excellent. That's my partner, Speaker Tim Jones. Safe travels, my friend, and I will see you back in studio tomorrow.
Thank you, gents.
Thanks, Tim.
You. Jim, that's one thing that we didn't get a chance to discuss too much today is the governor's tax, income tax phase-out bill. But coming up, we're going to speak with Daniel Turner, founder and executive director of Power the Future. And then we're going to have Joy, a bonus movie review, 28 years later, The Bone Temple and Dead Man's Wire. Listening to the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show on 101.9, 94.1 News Talk STL.
Follow us on Rumble at News Talk STL. From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
Chilly evening with temperatures hovering in the lower 30s. Light flurries are possible in the metro, mainly between 8 and midnight. Areas east have a slightly better chance at minor accumulations where flurries to a half-inch remain possible. I do keep an eye on those roadways. It's cold tonight with temperatures falling into the upper 20s. Tomorrow brings back milder highs in the mid-40s ahead of Arctic air this weekend. With your first alert forecast, I'm meteorologist Leah Hill.
It's not pleasant to hear it, but Missouri is falling behind in its spending of state tax dollars, education, and health care. But there are ways to get Missouri moving forward again and produce a better life for all of us. That's why we at the Show Me Institute put together a 2026 Missouri Blueprint, a roadmap on how the state can move to a brighter future. The blueprint covers policy ideas from taxes to government transparency, from education to health care and budget reform. Let's allow students to attend the school of their choice. Let's adopt new proven methods to help the many school kids who can barely read. Let's limit state spending growth for Missouri's long-term financial stability. And let's invest in future needs with more nuclear energy. Why not common sense reforms to make things better for all Missourians? Check out our 2026 Missouri Blueprint, moving Missouri forward at showmeinstitute.org. The Show Me Minute has been brought to you by Show Me Institute and Show Me Opportunity.
Hey, it's Vic Porcelli, and my favorite sandwich from Capriati's is the Wagyu beef French dip. So good. It's the au jus that makes it. And the Wagyu beef is pretty good, too. I love Capriati's, and you will, too.
On Manchester at McKnight in Rock Hill.
This hour of Jones and Arps is brought to you by Stifel. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com. It's the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show.
Under blue moon I saw you, so soon you'll take me.
The U.S. has seized a sixth oil tanker now linked to Venezuela. What more do we know?
Yeah, this is part of an ongoing operation. This is yet another oil tanker that has been seized that is linked to Venezuela. It comes as the U.S. is trying to control the oil industry in Venezuela and control the oil going in and out of that country. Now, according to U.S. officials, this oil tanker was seized without incident. You're showing video there of what that was posted by Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. It appears to show helicopters hovering over the deck of the vessel while armed troops drop down onto the deck by rope.
527 on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show. I do have one correction of that report there, Jim. I don't think we're trying to control the Venezuelan oil economy. I think we already do that. All right, on the line with us is Daniel Turner. He's the founder and executive director of Power the Future, and he's also a sheep farmer.
I got to ask him about that.
Daniel, welcome to the show.
Hi, gentlemen. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. All right, we heard that clip. There's been a sixth Venezuelan oil tanker that has been seized. Plus, I read today how the administration has sold the first of the Venezuelan oil valued at $500 million, and that money is sitting in a bank account for future transfer to Venezuela. Give us your thoughts on those two developments.
I am very hawkish on these actions. I'm hawkish on controlling the world's oil supply, and for this reason. Some of the world's worst actors control oil, and look at what they've done with it. When Russia continued to make oil profits, they invaded Ukraine. When Iran made huge oil profits, they launched their October 7th massacre, and they fomented terrorism worldwide. When Venezuela had huge oil profits, they spread communism all throughout our hemisphere. And then what happens after these events is the UN and the global order and the European Union look at America and they say, hey, why don't you guys clean up this mess? So I am hawkish on controlling oil from preemption. Control the oil now so that the bad guys don't. And then America doesn't have to clean up the mess that those bad guys cleaned up. And I like the way the president is doing it. These are not a lot of huge military operations. There are no boots on the ground. And if we can prevent the bad actors from controlling the world's oil supply, then we are doing the world a huge favor.
So I haven't seen the first sales were going. Who's buying the oil? Is it oil companies, I guess, buy these, or other nations, or who's buying the oil that we're selling?
Yeah, well, so the way the crude industry works, and this is where it gets a little convoluted and you can manipulate statistics. Crude oil really doesn't have much value until it can get turned into a product. And so what happens is it all has to go to refineries. And we are the world's largest refiner. Most of the refineries are along the Gulf Coast. And so if you look at oil import numbers, people will say, we import 30 million barrels of oil a day. I mean, and technically we do, but we export 30 million barrels a day because we turn it into different products and they get sold right back. So I wouldn't be surprised if the original purchaser are those refineries, because then they will refine it and they will sell it to X country that wants gas or that wants jet fuel or whatever the end product is. So my hunch is that the purchasers of that Venezuelan oil are American refiners in the Gulf Coast.
Daniel, one of the advantages that I've read about the United States taking over Venezuela's oil industry, of course, is that China doesn't have access to that oil because they are an adversary of ours. But also in the long run, it keeps China from having that oil to power their industries. Plus, there is an AI race between the United States and China. And if they don't have the energy to power their facilities for developing AI, that keeps us having an advantage. What other advantages do you see to the United States controlling that oil and not letting our competitors have access to it?
Yeah, it's a great point, and it's like I said, it's also keeping it out of the hands of other bad actors, which I think is good. It's America setting the world example on oil markets, right, and setting the standard, which I think is a very good thing. The China angle is really key, and I think the president is deliberately extremely discreet on it. If he is making a comment in public about China, President Trump talks about his great respect for Chairman Xi and his great respect for the Chinese people, and he wants cooperation. But quietly, or maybe not quietly, but without mentioning China, look at the actions that he's taken. Obviously, the tariffs on all imported goods from China. Obviously, the incentive for American companies to leave China and manufacture back in America. He has shut down Iranian oil production, and that's another country that's in complete revolution right now. And now he shut down Venezuelan oil. So if you're Chairman Xi, you got to be pretty darn nervous, right? Like your number one customer is making it hard for you to export your goods, America. And now the raw materials you need to run not just your economy, but your military, which you use to threaten most of the world, well, now that's in tough supply. And so President Trump has hardly mentioned China at all, and I think that's deliberate. But China knows that all of the actions he has taken are very, very much to America's advantage in harming them. And if you believe America is a force for good, and we all believe that, and you believe China is a threat to the world, and I'm sure we believe that too, then these are some great steps that we've taken.
So the reports and the accounts that I've heard about Venezuela's oil industry, the infrastructure is old, needs a lot of investment. To get, I don't know if there's not an overnight regime change in Venezuela, at least not yet, but maybe they move forward in a more democratic manner. But, what would it take for them to have the infrastructure that they need to be, hopefully a good player on the world market? What are you seeing in Venezuela?
Yeah. That's a great question. And the interesting thing and the probably advantageous thing in this situation is that we're refurbishing. And refurbishing, modernizing infrastructure is a lot easier than starting oil from scratch. You compare, for example, Venezuela to the North Slope of Alaska. We're going to drill in Anwar. Well, if you go to Anwar, and I've been a number of times, it looks a little bit like Hoth, right, in the second Star Wars, in The Empire Strikes Back, right? It is full of snow and flat, and there's nothing there, not even tauntauns in Hoth, in Anwar. So to drill in Anwar is an enormous lift, right? To refurbish the oil industry in Venezuela, not so hard. We need to bring equipment. We need to bring personnel. Venezuela's best oil and gas personnel fled after the Chavez revolution. They're all in Midland, Texas, quite frankly. So there's a lot of assets that are ready to return to Venezuela. And then the best thing about it, which President Trump made very clear, it is the private sector that is doing that. If the government were in charge, if the American government were in charge of refurbishing Venezuela's oil industry, I'd say, well, then we're toast, right? As Milton Friedman said, if the government were in charge of the Sahara Desert, it would soon run out of sand. But it's the private sector, and the private sector knows how to bring oil to market. President Trump recognizes that. He's not going to do it. He's going to give them the space so that they can do it, and it's going to work.
Speaking with Daniel Turner, founder and executive director of Power the Future, powerthefuture.com. Daniel, radio host and author Michael Savage once wrote a book with the title Liberalism is a Mental Disorder. California is clear-cutting 3,500 mature old-growth trees in native woodlands and grasslands to make way for 3,000 acres of solar panels. Is this an example of Dr. Savage's book here?
I saw that on social media, and I tweeted that there's nothing greener than chopping down the forest and replacing that land with solar panels made by slave girls in communist China and hauled across the Pacific Ocean. Right? This is the stupidity of the green movement. Why would this be considered green when we talk about carbon and absorbing carbon? Trees absorb all of our carbon dioxide, and yet we're going to cut down trees to build solar farms. California has as shining examples of solar farms that have barely worked. And their largest, most exciting solar farm, which Barack Obama had a huge ribbon-cutting ceremony for, is already offline, and it has been a colossal failure, and it has cost billions of dollars with no return. That's another example of when the government is in charge. So this is just the stupidity of the green movement. Solar is expensive. It is made in China with slave labor. It's nonsense. And the funniest thing about it, it's all made from oil and gas and coal. And someone has to explain to me why the Chinese can use oil and gas and coal, but we can't. And the Chinese can use oil and gas and coal to have slave girls make these crappy solar panels, and we consider that somehow good for the earth. The entire green movement is just one gigantic lie on top of lie.
So I'm gonna take this back. You're a sheep farmer. Tell me about that. I'm curious.
They're wonderful creatures.
You're harvesting the methane for energy, right?
I went wool.
I think whenever I talk to anyone who has livestock, the difference between having sheep or having cattle or anything else is that sheep are always trying to die. They are always trying to get caught in a fence. They're always trying to fall off a cliff. If we have any Christians on the phone, there is a reason why Jesus did not say, "I am the good cattle farmer," but he said, "I am the good shepherd," because sheep are the dumbest, stupidest.
I was going to ask you that.
Animals.
All right, just how dumb are sheep? Give us an example of how dumb sheep are.
Walking into fences and then getting caught and then trying to spin their way out of it and then turning themselves in not even barbed wire I'm talking about, falling into ditches, and you pick them up and they go right back into the ditch. You can put down 3 grain buckets for 3 sheep, and they will all fight over one, and the other 2 will just sit there untouched. But it's a wonderful, it keeps me sane. If I have to deal with the environmental left, and I have to deal with liberal Democrats and the climate movement, and then I had to live in a city, I would go insane. So when I'm done with all of my nonsense, I have my glorious sheep and my acres to bring down my blood pressure.
Daniel, speaking of sanity, you have a podcast called Triggered, and you have what we call in the radio business, you got a big get recently. You had Donald Trump Jr. on your podcast. Tell us about that.
No, that was the reverse. That is his podcast.
Oh, okay.
I'm his guest. Yeah. And that was great to be his guest. And we did talk about this. We talked about Venezuela, and we talked about oil as national security assets, oil as global order and world peace. Great conversation, and that's why this is a great conversation, because it's not 7 seconds. We're having a lengthy, detailed conversation, and these are hard, complicated issues. It's the frustrating thing of watching presidential debates, or it's an election year. Pretty soon we'll have Senate debates. They want you to answer a question of this magnitude in 30 seconds. Well, I can't answer that in 30 seconds because we're not children, and these are not 30-second conversations. So the nice thing about a podcast or this great show is you can lay out positions that require a little bit of thought and a little bit of detail.
Thank you, sir.
So taking this back, Chris mentioned the AI space race between China and the United States. And obviously, in data centers, AI, there is a growing exponentially every year, a growing need for more juice on the grid, for lack of a better phrase. And, I think a lot of state public service commissions, as we call it here, or regulators or energy policy, they're trying to figure out ways with generating anything and putting it on the grid. And you can make the argument that solar does probably the fastest to actually start producing. Nuclear, everybody seems to love nuclear. It's the sexy thing right now, but the timeline for the approvals and getting them up, I get it. We're trying to do that. And I personally, free market guy, put it out there, put it on the grid. Just I want to turn my toothbrush on and make sure it's charged. I want more juice on the grid. I want AI to be. I want us to win that race. What are you seeing as the big drivers in just the energy industry right now? Obviously, oil's big, but what are you seeing out there broadly as far as the need and the growth in the demand for energy?
Well, we're in a hole. We are in an electricity hole because the previous administration shut down over 100 reliable coal and natural gas plants under the guise of climate change. And there was no referendum, there was no vote, there was no act of Congress. There was a weaponized EPA that said, we have new standards, you can't meet them, so we are shutting you down. So when you take off hundreds of megawatts of reliable electricity, well then you are leaving the people with a supply shortage. And if the demand stays the same and the supply is dwindled, the only option I get so emotional talking about this, I can hardly stand.
Don't get choked up on it, Daniel.
The only option is for the price to go up, and that's exactly what happened.
Right.
So the first thing we have to do is we have to, what was not dismantled, we have to turn back on what power plants the Biden administration took offline. People say all of the above, and I agree with that to an extent, but you mentioned solar is quick to bring online. It is. But you know what happens with data centers? People still use them at nighttime. And those data centers are not getting their power from solar at nighttime. So what are they doing? And people say, well, what about battery storage? And battery storage is a joke. Well, battery storage in America can last about 12 seconds at most. So we don't have the technology for battery storage. So I understand the AI race, and I want to win the AI race. But the problem is this: if you are a politician, it is a lot sexier to cut the ribbon on a data center with Mark Zuckerberg or with Microsoft's CEO and talk about investment, right? A new investment in our county. It is not so sexy to say we have to turn back on a coal plant. And so we are cutting ribbons left and right about building data centers, and we are not having the hard conversation on the infrastructure that data centers require, which is electricity and, of course, water. So
right.
I just see a lot of problems in the future unless we're able to have these adult conversations.
And that is a great way to end our conversation. Things that are not or maybe sexy and sheep. So thank you, thank you, Daniel, very much for this very interesting discussion. He is Daniel Turner, founder and executive director of Power the Future on X, Daniel Turner PTF, and the website is powerthefuture.com. Thank you so much, Daniel. Look forward to speaking with you again.
Thanks, guys. Anytime.
Excellent. All right, 5:43 coming up. Not one, but two movie reviews today. Joy's going to have that coming up next. You're listening to the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show on 101.9, 94.1 News Talk STL.
Dropping truth bombs and making you think. It's the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show. From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
Chilly evening with temperatures hovering in the lower 30s. Light flurries are possible in the metro, mainly between 8 and midnight. Areas east have a slightly better chance at minor accumulations where flurries to a half-inch remain possible. I do keep an eye on those roadways. It's cold tonight with temperatures falling into the upper 20s. Tomorrow brings back milder highs in the mid-40s ahead of Arctic air this weekend. With your first alert forecast, I'm meteorologist Leah Hill.
JC's Wayback Machine.
A hilarious interview with Adam Sandler on this week's A-List interview. Glenn Fry passed away 10 years ago. We'll have some great stuff from the archives and talk about the origin of Party Town. Mr. Howland's Opus came out 30 years ago this week. Richard Dreyfuss tells us a couple of backstories, and we'll get into some Sammy and Springfield coming to town this summer. Brought to you by the Weber Automotive Group.
It's JC's Wayback Machine. Every Saturday night, 6 to 9 on News Talk STL.
Hey, it's Vic Porcelli here with our great friend Chris Cooper from Serenity Wealth Management. Hi, Chris.
How are you, Vic?
I don't want to put anybody else down, but that when you go up and visit you at Serenity Wealth, your place looks like home.
So a lot of financial advisory offices, they have, the big mahogany desk or the big marble entryways and things like that. The stock market channel on the TV when you walk in the door, right? That doesn't really drive a good conversation. Good financial guidance and advice starts with a good conversation. People are nervous. People are afraid to talk about finances, right? And so you can see a little standoffish. Well, my objective is to try to have a good, casual conversation. By having those conversations about life, goals, objectives, it's what makes me understand what our financials are supposed to fund.
So if somebody does want to have a good conversation, how do they do that? How do they find you?
Our website is the best way to do that because you can get all the information you need to understand where we are, get a little bit more information, all that. SerenityWealthNow.com.
Reach out to Chris and Stacy today at SerenityWealthNow.com.
Investment advice offered through Fortis Capital Advisors, LLC.
It's the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show.
When the infected attack, what do they see? I believe the infection can be treated.
Are you Old Nick?
Old Nick? You mean Satan?
Yes. Old Nick released his demons unto the world of man. And the world of man fell before the demons.
5:46 on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show. And how lucky are we? We get Joey V's movies a day early, and not one, but two.
I'm excited.
Joey, baby, what movie are you playing?
Brought to you by Harry J's Steakhouse and Ami's Pizza.
So first off, let me get everyone oriented.
All right.
Back in like 2002, there was 28 Days Later.
Good movie.
And then there was 28 Weeks Later. And then there was a big old gap of nothing. And now we've got this brand new trilogy of the 28 Years Later movies. So last June, I talked about 28 Years Later. And now we've got 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple. So just to avoid confusion, I'm just going to refer to the one back in June as 28 Years Later. And this one is The Bone Temple.
Okay.
So this one, The Bone Temple. In the last movie, that came out in June, we met Ralph Fiennes. Rafe, I think he likes to be called Rafe. I think if you call him Ralph, he gets mad. But we met Ralph Fiennes. He's a doctor. He's built a bunker somewhere in the UK countryside that allows him to live a quiet life among the affected. And there's a little boy named Spike who was captured by a satanic cult. So the Bone Temple focuses on just those two characters and their eventual meetup at the end of the movie. So I think everyone is grounded. We know where we're at. The last 28 Years Later movie was more exploring what's happened to the world at large since the virus spread. And now this one, we got a more focused character study on just those two people. And I believe you, Jim, you saw the last one. You liked Ralph Fiennes. He was like the best part of the last one.
He was my favorite part of the 28 years that came out in June. I loved the first one, liked the second two. And your analogy about exploring the world, I get that now, and now I want to rewatch it. But I really enjoyed the doctor's story.
And so I think they knew that people love that doctor story, and they're just going to focus on him a lot. Now, director Danny Boyle and writer Alex Garland, they're the minds behind this whole 28 franchise. And Danny is taking this movie off. He took off The Bone Temple so he can work on the third one. He's already working on the third one. So whether you like it or not, you're getting another one, Chris. You can't stop them from coming. The zombies are going to eat us.
I know what I'm going to be doing on the one weekend.
But they have this black woman, Nia DaCosta. She is directing this one. And I could feel that there was a difference in pace, in tone, and use of music that I just expect from Danny Boyle that Nia DaCosta doesn't have the same finesse with. Because Danny Boyle has inventive camera angles, and the music and the editing go together so perfectly that those images live in my mind forever. I found this one was a little bit of a slog sometimes. I still love the lore of the world, of what happens if this virus takes over. After COVID, I mean, these movies are even more exciting to see
right.
what would happen if we were just started eating each other instead of just staying 6 feet apart. It'd be interesting if we went the other way with it.
I'd raise sheep.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
Exactly. Now, this one, it's an hour and 50 minutes, and I wouldn't say runtime really matters, but because the editing isn't as quick and frenetic as the other movies, I did feel it. So I think that you just got to be prepared that there's going to be a little bit of waiting to think, is this what the whole movie's about, the satanic cult? Oh, it is actually. And that can be a bummer for someone who's more of the religious mind to hang out with these people, because you think, all right, if the world goes to crud and there's nothing to live for, religion in the traditional sense may actually become more negative. So these satanic cults would rise to the top. And that's why you end up hanging out with this satanic group of kids for a long time. And it's a very British movie, too. So this little sect of Satanism that we're hanging out with, they're very much obsessed with this guy, Jimmy Savile. You ever hear of Jimmy Savile? He was like their Mr. Rogers, who ended up being a rapist pedophile.
I've seen the.
I remember hearing about
He wore
that,
these tracksuits. He had the blonde hair
there you
that
go.
was so stupid.
Yeah.
And so this satanic sect actually mimics Jimmy Savile. They dress like him. They act like him. And so it's just a
We
dread
saw them at
fest.
the end of the last movie.
Yeah, at the end of the last movie, they came out
The
pole
tracksuits,
vaulting
right,
and they
right.
kidnapped little Spike.
Okay, so he's still in this one. That's the same kid. I forgot the kid's name. But I love the Doctor. I love Voldemort.
Mm-hmm. And the ending, though, the ending is definitely worth it. There's some incredible set pieces that they say.
All
So
right.
even if you find that, oh, what are we doing hanging out with these guys in the woods so long? I mean, when they get to some of these big, violent set pieces, it's some of the best images I've seen in movies in a long time. So it is worth it, and I highly recommend you stick with it and just be ready for this third one that's coming out next year to be even better and blow your pants off. Something I didn't love about this Bone Temple is that it's all vintage music, because Ray Fiennes has a record collection he likes to listen to. The last one, it was all a new score by this band called the Young Fathers, and that music was so great. I was listening to that score over and over. This one, because it's old classic music, it didn't hit me the same way, but the plot totally justifies why you'd be listening to Ray Fiennes' record collection in a bunker somewhere.
All right, for somebody like me who doesn't watch a whole lot of movies except at home on Netflix, can you tell us a little bit of the premise of these movies so to pique my interest to want to see this? What started the first one? What is
Sure.
Give me
Instead
a little
of
preview.
just regular zombies eating people, it's an actual virus that
Oh,
spreads
okay.
that gives people the rage virus. And that's why they can run. You usually think of zombies as
Yeah,
laboring
yeah.
and being slow, but these people, as soon as they get infected, if you punch one of these zombies and some blood goes in your eye, you become infected immediately and then start getting violent.
So they're like track stars.
Exactly.
They can run you down.
We need to
They're
have
zombie adjacent.
God,
we need to
okay.
have the rage virus Olympics. You know how they're separating
Right.
everyone by male and female? We need to have zombies also in their own little group as well.
It sounds interesting.
So I give this 3.5 out of 5 stars. If
No,
you love
not stars.
3.5 out of 5 toasted raviolis.
There you go.
Don't you forget it. 3.5 out of 5 toasted raviolis. And if you love Sinners, I highly, highly recommend you check out The Bone Temple, because Jack O'Connell, the main vampire from Sinners, he is the head lead of this satanic sect. And he is still creepy as all get out. I mean, he is so good at it. He's going to get like pigeonholed as the guy to go to if you need a villain in a movie.
Do I need to watch the first one, or will I be completely lost if I just watch this one?
I tell you need to watch 28 Years Later,
Right.
but you don't need to watch the other two.
Okay.
Because you really want to get attached to this kid Spike that was in the last one. He carried that movie. He was incredible. So
All right.
thank you guys. I mean, I love that you let me talk about movies. Oh wait, I got a
We-
second one.
I was like,
Oh,
wait a
my
minute, am I
goodness.
missing?
Now we're going to talk about Dead Man's Wire. Both of these are at the exact. They're both in theaters right now. So this is Dead Man's Wire.
All
Let's
right.
listen to the trailer for this one.
I'm DJ Fred Temple. I thank you for listening.
Mr. Temple, sir, you have a caller?
I have dinner in 30 minutes is what I have.
That Tony Kuritz's fella's on the line and he's asking to speak to you. The guy with the shotgun in the man's neck.
You should open with that, James. What's on your mind, brother?
This loan company's done me wrong. They set me up and schemed to ruin my life.
Well, let me tell you something.
I'm not a rich man. I'm a poor man, and that never bothered me. I'm a man that's fighting for everything that he owns, sir. So what's your plan, Tony, huh? What's next?
Dead
Was that
Man's
Morgan
Wire.
Freeman's voice I heard there?
That was Coleman Domingo.
Oh, okay.
Dead Man's Wire. Did that trailer let you know what's going on? There is a shotgun strapped to a guy's friggin' neck in this movie, and if that guy tries to run away, his head's going to get blown off.
I'm trying to envision that. How does that work?
Well, I brought one with me. Let me show you. Now, Dead Man's Wire, it's a true story that took place in Indianapolis in 1977. This real estate developer named Tony Kritzis, he attached a sawed-off shotgun to his mortgage broker's neck, demanding to get $5 million and a personal apology live on television. And if you don't believe me, there's a documentary on YouTube. Everything was filmed. Everything was recorded. You can see the real-life story right now on YouTube.
Yeah.
And you'd be like, what the heck? I can't believe I didn't know about this thing.
I don't, and I was alive then. I'm just trying to imagine a guy with a shotgun strapped to his head. How does that work?
I've heard the story about the guy that had dynamite locked, and they made him go rob the bank or something along those lines. Interesting.
This is directed by Gus Van Sant, guy from Good Will Hunting, and it's got Bill Skarsgård, the guy who was the clown from It, Pennywise, Al Pacino, Carrie Elwes from The Princess Bride, and then Coleman Domingo from The Running Man.
Al Pacino's in this?
Al
Al
Pacino's
I
in
love
this.
Al Pacino. I'm going to go see it. Anything he's in, I want to watch.
And it kind of reminded me of the movie that came out last year, September 5, about the Munich Olympic massacre, where it was set in the 70s and it had actual footage from the real thing. And so it had a great vibe to it. And I love that a radio DJ is the main character in this as well. And so there's a point in the middle where the movie sticks so close to the facts that it drags a little bit. He actually has this guy strapped to a shotgun at the bank, and then he takes him back to his apartment. And you just sit around in his apartment for a little bit. But just keep reminding yourself, this is a true story. So everything that I'm seeing right here is nuts. So I highly recommend this, especially for people who love 70s movies and throwbacks and true stories. I give this one 3.5 out of 5 stars as well. Check out the documentary Dead Man's Line on YouTube if you want to see even more about it.
He did it again, stars.
Toasted raviolis.
3.5 toasted raviolis.
There you go. All right, so that is 28 years later, The Bone Temple, 3.5 toasted ravs. Dead Man's Wire, 3.5 toasted ravs. I have to ask the question I ask you every week. Did you cry in any of these two movies?
I did not cry. I laughed a lot at Dead Man's Wire, though. It was very funny.
All right. Good. Thank you, Joy, for the review of those movies. Excellent job as always. You will not be here tomorrow or next week, so have a great time on your vacation. Joey or Jim, thank you so much for sitting in for Tim. Always appreciate, always love you coming in. Coming up next, we're going to talk to, Larry Connors USA is up next. He's going to talk about, the story behind the big story is him deciding to become a pilot and scaring the daylights out of himself. You won't want to miss that. You're listening to the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show on 101.9, 94.1 News Talk STL. Drive safe and have a great weekend or a great evening.
Are you ready to take a totally tubular trip down memory lane? Join us for the ultimate 80s and 90s trivia night, raising funds for the Nick Schroer for State Senate campaign. Dust off your neon, grab your friends, and test your knowledge on all the classics, from mixtapes to sitcoms, boy bands to blockbuster hits, and maybe even some